Hey guys, it's Taylor and I'm back at you this week, this time bringing you a business tip. So this is a topic that I find really interesting and something that I have in my own life and in my own business really try to focus on and cut down on, and that is context switching. Context switching. You may or may not be familiar with the term, but I bet you've experienced it in your personal life or your business life, because in today's modern society, we are asked to do so many different things. So what is context switching? It is basically multitasking, right? Like you hear, like, we are actually not great as multitaskers as humans, although we try to do it all the time. The reason that multitasking isn't good for us, and context switching in this sense, is that it really fatigues your mind and it decreases productivity. The changes that you might make between tasks or projects may feel small at the time, but the compounding impact on your productivity is major. According to a computer scientist named Gerald Weinberg, this is how it works. So the idea goes like this. So you have one task, and when you focus on that one task at a time, it gets 100% of your productive time available. Now, if you add in a second task, you're now juggling two tasks, which means 40% of your productive time is going to one, 40% to another, and 20% of your time is being lost to context switching. And that is your brain switching from one task to a different task, or it could be a project or maybe a client. Depending on how your schedule is, what you're context switching between can be different, but that's the idea. Between one to another, you're actually only giving 40% of your time if you're focusing on two tasks. Then if you add in a third task, which is not unheard of, 20% of your time is going to one, 20% to another, and 20% to the last third, which gives 40% lost time to context switching. Psychologists have determined that it takes an individual at least 15 minutes to get into a steady workflow state with one task. That means every time you switch tasks, you're losing 15 minutes. So if you're trying to do 10 tasks a day, that is 150 minutes of your day that you've lost just trying to get your brain to switch from one thing to another. Crazy, I know. There's stats that kind of blow you away when you first hear them, but also really start to make sense when you start to look at your daily life. So I don't just want to scare you. I want to give you some practical tips on how you can keep context switching at bay. So tip number one is to plan out in advance. And more specifically, I would recommend batch scheduling. So batch scheduling is where you organize your time in batches of like tasks. So this could be by client, say morning, client A, get your time, afternoon, client B, get your time, and that's all you get done for the day. You could also do it by category. So you could say Mondays and Wednesdays are my content creation days, or anything that has to do with content for my business. Tuesdays and Thursdays are my client meetings. So if I have to schedule a meeting, they go there back to back. And do you see how that kind of helps? If you're already in meeting mode, it's really hard to switch to creation mode, right? And so you want to schedule like tasks. So that's one way to do it. It's called an A-B schedule. So day one, you're an A schedule, day two, B schedule, and back and forth. And what you'll actually find, although it seems counterintuitive at first, what you'll find is you actually accomplish a lot more because you're giving dedicated focus to certain tasks that are all going to, in the end, benefit your business, but you're giving them the space and time. If you were to go from a meeting, be like, okay, I have an hour to like write this thing up. Maybe you get it written up, maybe you don't. Maybe you get distracted by something else and you have to go into another meeting. And at the end of the day, you were trying to keep track of so many different things in like a 3 or 4 hour period. You really kind of leave that period feeling like you didn't get a whole lot done versus giving yourself a dedicated time to work on something. Okay, so tip number two is to limit distractions. I mean, we talk about this a lot in our society with phone notifications and computer notifications. I mean, I have Slack. I have 5 clients on Slack, and so I can get notifications at any time. I've been distracted even recording videos at times. So one of the things to do is to limit that. So don't have your email open all day long. That's actually a really big one. Minimize the window, or maybe you have to log into it to check it. Keep your email down. Another thing I do to limit my distractions is I have a Chrome extension called One Tab. So if there's something, like there's websites that I need to access or I'm going to need later in the day, I click my One Tab, it adds it into one tab for me. So then later in the day I can go mark that and it'll open it, and that way I can work on one project at a time, and I can just see those windows without losing the websites that I maybe don't want to bookmark, because then I have to clean up my bookmarks later, but there's something that I'm going to need in the next couple of days. I'll use that Chrome extension. A third tip is if you're having trouble focusing, which sometimes I have these days too, where even though I have so much to get done, I just cannot get my brain to focus on one thing. When that happens, I typically set a timer for myself. So sometimes I use what's called the Pomodoro technique. And the idea behind it is that you set a timer for 25 minutes, and for that 25 minutes, you don't do anything else. You just work on the task at hand, get in that steady workflow, and then once the timer's up, then you're able to take a step back and take a 5-minute break. What you find is that once you finally get into that steady state, because it only takes 15 minutes, as we already know, you find that you're like, oh, okay, I'm good with this, and you actually either get something done, or you are able to just continue to focus after that. So they do say take 25 minutes, 5-minute rest, 25 minutes on, 5-minute rest. And then after you do 4 sessions, you should take a longer break, like 10 to 20 minutes. And so I actually set, again, I don't put it on my phone, but I set my timer. There's another Chrome extension called Timer, and I will set a 25-minute timer there if I just cannot get my brain to focus. Now, another one for me that I really struggle with, and I know a lot of other people do as well, but it's not letting minor emergencies or tasks derail your productivity. So this is someone being like, hey, can you tell me how much of whatever we have in stock? Even though maybe you're writing an email, that's really important and needs your time and attention. You'll be like, yeah, sure, it'll only take me 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever it is. Time it takes you, this is the point behind context switching. The time it takes you to go do that task and get back into what you're doing, you're actually losing productivity. So to get around this is to set boundaries with your team or with your clients and say, from the hours of this to this is when you can contact me for something. Obviously, if it's like a major emergency, then you will be available. Like, the website crashed, it's down, like this needs to be fixed now, like that's something that's worth your time and attention. But if it's something like, hey, can you check on this? Can you set a reminder to do this? Can you XYZ? Put those tasks aside. Don't stop what you're doing to handle them, and don't let other people derail your productivity. So that just comes down to communication and setting boundaries with your team. And then it also helps them know, like, oh, this is the time I have to communicate with my manager or my teammate or whatever it is, and I'm gonna respect those boundaries and only talk to them at that time. And you'll find that everyone actually becomes a little bit more productive. And then the last one that's really big for context switching is just making sure that you don't move on to a project before completing the first one. And this isn't always possible. I know there's been so many times where I'm working in the middle of something and the login information I was given wasn't correct. And I'm like, this is the time I set aside to work on it, and I want to feel productive, but I don't know how long it's going to take them to get back to me. And so you kind of move on, but keep everything open and then like hope to come back to it quickly. And that's like the worst. That's like I hate stuff like that where I'm in the middle of working on something and I need to get information from another person to move on. But what you can do to limit that as much as you can is just make sure when you have most of the control is to don't finish a project 80% and then get so excited about the next thing to like move on. Make sure you're actually finishing projects before you move on, because again, the amount of time it takes your brain to switch between tasks or projects is really important. So you want to be mindful of that. So that is context switching. there are practical steps that you can do and kind of implement into your business or your job or your day. You really don't have to be an entrepreneur for this to affect you. It really can affect you in many ways. The same thing in your personal life. It's the same idea. When you go to the gym, one day you do leg day, the next day you do upper body. It's the same idea in your business, and just like kind of bringing that into a different aspect of your life. Thank you so much for being here. I come out with a new video every Tuesday, and if there's something specific you want to hear me talk about, just let me know.